Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to I guess this is meeting number 2 for the month of September for the Concord Zoning Board of Adjustment. We will follow our usual procedure this evening, which is to say I will call the cases in the order in which they appear in the agenda. We will first ask that the appellant step forward and be sworn in and be seated in the chairs to my right and give us any information that he or she would like us to hear. We ask that the appellants confine themselves to a 10-minute interval of testimony, if at all possible. We will then ask the appellant to step down, and we will invite people from the audience who wish to be heard in favor of the appeal, and also people from the audience who wish to be heard in opposition to the appeal. We ask that those members of the audience who choose to speak confine themselves to a 5-minute interval. Following that, I will check in with code enforcement to see if there are any comments from their office. And if any comments have been offered that seem to bear factual clarification, the appellant will have that opportunity not to offer new arguments, but to offer clarification prior to our closing the public testimony portion of the hearing. Under most circumstances, the board will act on each case before moving on to the next one. The first case on the agenda this evening is case 0082, 2023, 5 Mill Street, RN. Neighborhood Residential District. Mark F. Rivero is the owner. The applicant wishes to create a subdivision with substandard lots. The applicant seeks variances to Article 2841B minimum lot size for proposed lot 37-1, 5 Mill Street. Proposed area 7,489 square feet where 10,000 square feet is required. To Article 2841C minimum lot frontage for a proposed lot of 37-2 for proposed lot 37-2, 7 Mill Street, proposed with a 69.34 foot frontage along Mill Street, where 80 feet frontage is required. Article 2841D, minimum yard requirements to allow the existing structures on both lots within the 50-foot front yard, 0.8 feet at the closest point. Article 2843, wetland buffers and setback to allow the existing structures on both lots within the 30-foot wetland buffer. Mr. Rivero, or someone representing him, come forward, please. Would you also be so kind as to sign in? There's a sign-in sheet there when you testify. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but?
I do.
Would you identify yourself for the record, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. My name is Craig Bailey, licensed land surveyor of record for Mr. Rivero. Mr. Rivero is also here with us tonight, and I will sign this in a moment. As you stated, the proposal is to correct a currently non-conforming lot of record at 5 and 7 Mill Street. Oh, you've got a good, okay. These are clearly substandard proposed lots. Right now there are 2 residences on the one lot, and so to try to make this less non-conforming, the proposal is to create 2 lots for the 2 residences. And because these structures predate the zoning ordinance by decades, they're both non-conforming. The right-of-way, we believe, is a 30-foot wide right-of-way through Mill Street. The right-of-way ends right at the front door of 7 Mill Street, just shy of a foot off the front deck of the building. And 5 Mill Street is set back from the road a little bit farther, about 14 feet, but still less than the required. And so the frontage, the available frontage on the lot along Mill Street, along the right-of-way of Mill Street, does not allow for 160 feet total for the 2 lots. 5 Mill Street, the structure is currently partially cantilevered over the river because these are old mill buildings, and so there is 0 setback from not only the wetland buffer but the edge of the river itself, the brook, Mill Brook. And so as far as nonconformities go, this one has just about everyone available. But again, the proposal here is to make it less non-conforming by separating the two residences onto separate lots. Mr. Chairman, are there any questions?
Would you touch on the notion of hardship due to the nature of the law?
Absolutely. The hardship here is clearly due to the land form itself and the location of the river, which he has no control over. The hardship is the structures were placed there well before the zoning ordinance was ever enacted. There is no other alternative locations on either lot for for 5 Mill Street to comply with the current zoning ordinance. And 7 Mill Street cannot comply either due to the frontage, the front yard setback. And so due to the location and proximity of Millbrook and the location of the right-of-way, the hardship is the land itself.
Very good. Questions from the board? Yes.
Is he laying the foundation to sell these separately to separate owners? I'm assuming he owns them now and is renting them to homeowners?
Mr. Rivero resides in one, and one of them is a rental unit, correct?
So I mean, what's his motive in, you said that he's doing this to reduce the nonconformity, but,
Correct.
I mean,
I
that's
can't
just...
say to his reasons.
Oh, okay.
He is here, though. We can ask him in a moment. But well, Mr. Rivero, why don't you come on up?
I'm just wrapping my head around it. I don't know if that's relevant or not, but,
Swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Of course.
Do you identify yourself for the record and sign in on the sign-in sheet, please?
Sure. My name is Merrick Rivero. I am the owner of the property. And the primary reason I'm doing this is one of financing and as well as just being able to maintain the record. Getting a mortgage on the property because it doesn't fit any sort of standard by any bank has been a significant problem. But getting them split into two and making them individual single residences makes it infinitely easier to maintain the mortgage.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can speak to that. Equity lines, anything like that, on non-conforming property like this is it's very difficult. I have one listed now.
We'll get to that discussion. Are there any other questions?
I
How
did.
long have you owned the property? I'm sorry.
6, 7 years, something like that. I think it was like 2015, 2014 that I purchased the place, so probably actually closer to 10 years, I guess, now.
Okay.
I just had a quick question. I see number 11, just beyond that, how does that get access? Is that a right-of-way across the edge of 7?
Mr. Chairman, I can speak to that. The 11 Mill Street is also part of, the original infrastructure. There is a right-of-way across the property for 7 Mill Street, and it is, yes, there's a right-of-way across there, and it's actually spoken to in the deeds.
What doesn't show in the drawing?
Correct.
Oh, it kind of, sort of does, but not.
The road does continue past 7, but no one really lives there. It's closed down.
This is one of those cases where
Okay.
the access was there prior to 1988 and also through 1968, and so these are definitely easements by time.
So the 11 Mill building is not occupied?
Correct.
You had a question?
No, you'll have a chance in a minute, sir.
Questions?
Did you see we got an email from, I don't know if they're here to speak tonight, but we got an email from the abutter at 14 Chalmette Street, and part of it is she's discussing some concerns about the plans. Did you get a copy of that?
I did not have any concerns.
I might suggest that you read this while you're waiting, if someone else is speaking, and then that way you could address it if you come back up.
Is that the email from Suzanne's?
Yeah, only because they're discussing these plans, so you might want to might want to respond to that. I think you'll have a chance after the neighbors speak.
I'll summarize the letter in a moment. Are there any other questions from the board?
So on one, you meet the lot size requirement, and the other one, you meet the frontage requirement, is that correct?
That's correct. It's 30, 40. We're just shy of the frontage requirement on 7 Mill Street.
And what's the lot size on that one?
Proposed lot size on 7 will be 15,000. 15,289 square feet.
Any other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Perfect.
Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in opposition to it? Please come forward. You don't have to be in favor or in opposition. You can just ask questions if you have. You swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
May we have your name, please?
Michael Swanek.
Would you sign in also on that?
Right here.
I believe that the 11 Mill Street that you were referring to is the actual mill building. It's the site of the first mill in Concord.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, I researched it over the winter.
Mhm.
I'm in a butter across the road. So, that's all I had to say, really.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Well within 5 minutes.
It didn't seem that anyone knew what that building was. It's the site of the first mill in Concord.
Okay. Would anyone else like to be heard? Just a moment. Would anyone else like to be heard? Any comments from code enforcement?
Nope, this is obviously gonna go to the planning board if it passes muster with you folks, because it's a subdivision outline.
Very good. We do have a letter from Suzanne Smith-Meyer, who lives at 14 Shawmut Street. She notes that there's no graphic scale on the plans, which made it difficult for her to assess distances.
Suzanne Smith.
Oh, good question. I don't think so.
And said it is unusual to see the abutter's property line not shown in the middle of the watercourse. She also suggested it would be prudent to apply for a wetland permit if the lot is subdivided, which would not be a zoning application. She said she also believes there are discrepancies and inaccuracies, especially along the frontage of her lot and neighbors. It appears that the property on 4 Mill Street jumps over the stream to the neighboring lot. Very good. Mr. Bailey, would you like to offer any factual clarification?
Yes.
Please do.
The deed for the parcel is very crystal clear that the western boundary is along the high water mark of Mill Brook. And this is quite common when it comes into mill and riparian rights with regards to mills and mill rights. And so in this case, the center line of the brook is not the property line. The property line is the far side of the brook. It is the western side of the brook along at the high water mark. And so Ms. Suzanne is correct. It is unusual, but this is the case.
Very good. Thank you very much. With that, we'll declare the public testimony portion of the hearing closed. We have heard testimony that we have 2 buildings, both of which considerably predate the zoning ordinance on a single lot, and the appellant would like to subdivide the lot so that each building is on its own lot for a number of reasons, including clarifying financing. And we've heard that the fact that the 2 buildings are on a single lot constitutes a hardship. I'm going to start this one with Mr. Mr. Nick.
I didn't know.
Mr. Walner. That was my little moment of senior-itis there, that's all.
Seems to be happening in Washington, too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, but I figured I'd let you have that line. Senator.
It's such an unusual configured lot, and it seems to create complications for the applicant. We're not that far from the minimum frontage for variance request number 2, and we're not that far off on the request for variance 1 in terms of square footage. I don't see this creating any harm to the community by doing this.
Very good.
I had a quick question for code enforcement.
Sure.
And maybe you don't know, maybe I should have asked the gentleman who came out. Who owns 11 Mill Street?
That was my question, too.
Yeah.
Anne Marie Smith and Lorraine S. Howard in Troy at the time of the survey, I'm assuming.
Okay, but nobody lives there, is that?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Mr. Wallner that the first 2 requests are not particularly burdensome, consistent with everything we've put before, and then the other 2 is just the uniqueness of the property being built right on top of the brook for all the right reasons, and the fact that it's going to planning, I think will address any of the confusion around the lot lines that were in Susan Smith Meyer's letter, so I'm inclined to support it.
Great, thank you. Andrew.
I agree, and I'd also add, it strikes me as kind of impractical to require 2 seemingly, well-suited residential homes for homeowners to be on the same lot, when obviously the structures themselves are fixed and, not gonna be moved, and they're gonna be used, so why not allow them to be owned by 2 different people if that's what the market, would suggest is most practical? So I can't think of a reason why he shouldn't be able to subdivide it. Obviously, if he wanted to make any additional changes to the land, to use of the land, then he would need further variances.
Ms. Perkins.
Pretty much the same. I think because it's going to planning board, I don't have any concerns.
Very good. I agree with my colleagues. I think there is a hardship that's inherent in the configuration of the lot, and that all the other criteria are met. Would anyone care to make a motion?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Would you
Yeah,
touch
sure.
on the criteria?
Yeah, I think number 1, I don't think this is going to affect the essential character of the neighborhood. I think the spirit of the ordinance is observed. I think the benefit to the applicant certainly is not outweighed by harm to the general public. We heard no testimony that's going to affect the surrounding property values, and I think the hardship is based on the fact that the lot is unique, and to have 2 properties on it, in essence, creates a hardship. And
Very good. Consistent with the second?
yes.
Any discussion of the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The variance, I think there were 3 variances, were there?
4.
4 variances. All 4 variances were covered by the motion, I assume.
Comes in handy.
Yeah. Are granted. You're all set. You're welcome. That brings us to our next case this evening, which is case 0083-2023, 40 Thompson Street, downtown residential district. Peter Blanchard is the owner. The owner wishes to build a 14-foot by 40-foot tandem garage. The applicant seeks a variance to Article 28.4.1 dimensional standards to be 5 feet from the side yard at the closest point, where 10 feet are required. Is Mr. Blanchard or someone to represent him here? Please come forward. Swear to tell the truth and nothing but.
I do.
Would you sign in and identify yourself for the record, please?
I'm Peter Blanchard, resident and owner of 40 Thompson in Concord.
would you like us to know?
I'm looking to replace the current carriage house that's been a two-car garage. Best that I can look at on the GIS is it's very, very close to the current property line. And the reason for the replacement is, over the years, well before I owned the property, it had been neglected. The foundation had been neglected, and its front of the barn is about 14 inches lower than the rear. So it's kind of making its way back to where, back into the garage. It may take quite a while, but at any rate, it's an unusable two-car structure. And I'm looking to remove that and put up a two-car tandem inside the 10-foot buffer at the right front corner. And as the property line widens down the side of the structure, it actually is pretty close to 10 feet at the end of it.
Very good. Can you touch on the hardship configuration of the lot issues?
The hardship for the structure itself is unusable as a two-car garage, as intended as a two-car garage. The hardship for, I would say, possibly aesthetically for the neighbors, I mean, it's kind of rough shape. But primarily, it's unusable as a two-car. Originally, the plan was to try to go two-car side by side, but that was like too aggressive, and I'm trying to like find a balance between the lot lines and the need.
Very good. Questions from the board?
Yeah, I know it's all in here and explained, but can you just tell me what the new footprint of the building will be compared to the existing building?
Right now, it's 19 by 24, and we're looking at 14 by 40.
So it'll be narrower but longer.
Yes, yeah, and I was kind of hoping I could get away with less than that, but the vehicles are like 16 or 17 feet long a piece, so I mean, you have to find some room in there a little bit, so that's why I went with 40. The two-car.
And you're not moving the structure forward on the driveway?
No. I would like it to stay like exactly where it is from the street. It would just move over 5 feet and then go back. I don't want it any closer to the house for sure, because there needs to be some sort of egress between the structure and into the backyard to take care of tree maintenance and things like that.
Yeah, because looking at this and looking at the pictures show it's a much more narrow space than what that looks like.
Between
Between the house and the garage.
that corner. The corner of the structure is, and the corner of the house is probably about 6.5 feet. You can get a full-size pickup truck in there to get in to do, because I had some work done. I had a tree pulled down or limbed up that fell down from a storm. You can squeeze one in there, but
Barely.
and that's why I only wanted 14. I don't want to go any wider because I need to leave room to get in there.
So it looks like you've got this odd jump in that right now the current structure is pretty much right on your property line.
As close as I can tell, yeah. I mean, if you take a look at the deeds, they're pretty brief as far as where the lines abut and everything. So looking at that there, so the current width is about 19 feet, and if it's basically on that right front line there, the distance between the right front of the current structure and the side of the house is 28. Okay, so if you pull 5 in and go 14. You're looking at about 19, and so you still have a way to get into the back to take care of trees and things like that. Somebody needs to get in there for that.
But why don't you push the driveway back and maybe curve it a little, and then you'd have more space if you went a little farther behind the house?
Well, I actually thought about coming closer to the house and having the gap instead of between the garage and the house. Actually thought about bringing it in closer and then having the distance on the right-hand side. Trying to be, cognizant of my neighbors and keeping their city lot peaceful. And I thought that the right-hand side of the garage would be permanent, and I would be going in and out of there with leaf blowers and lawn equipment and things like that. That's why I didn't go any further to the left. To keep their lots quiet and basically the same thing it is now, without having to go around the right side of the barn or the garage.
Oh, you mean you want the cut through between the house and the garage to be closer to your side, not on your neighbor's side?
Yeah, because I want to keep that peaceful over on the right-hand side of it, and then everything kind of funnels through there, especially with, doing yard work and, it's a tight squeeze with that railing there. I bumped a mirror once, so there's not a lot of room.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in opposition to it? Any comments from code enforcement? No. With that, we'll declare the public testimony portion of the hearing closed. We've heard testimony that the appellant would like to put a fore and aft garage on the footprint of an existing deteriorated barn, and that the impingement on the setback, which requires variance, would be actually less than the existing building is now. Ms. Perkins, start the discussion with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it being a detriment to the neighbors to make the change. It'll pull it away from the boundary, and half of it will probably be within the 10-foot, setback requirement, so I don't see an issue with allowing the change.
Very good. Mr. Winters?
Yeah, I think the hardship, of course, this neighborhood and the houses on it are, long predate the code, and having a garage, and larger garage than probably was originally anticipated when the house was built, is reasonable use of the property, and it seems like he's done his homework in terms of looking for the most reasonable place on the property, given the configuration of the current driveway and house. So I think it would be a hardship not to let him put it in the spot he chose when there aren't really any other great alternatives.
I have nothing to add.
Mr. Wallner?
He's improved on the setback issue from close to being right on the property line to 5 feet, so it's an improvement on the encroachment, so I'm inclined to support it also.
I agree with my colleagues. Is there anyone who would like to offer a motion?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Want to run quickly through the criteria, if you
Yeah.
would, please?
I think the hardship is met because it's reasonable to have a two-car garage, or certainly a tandem garage in a residential home. And this is really, given the current configuration of the driveway and the house, which are existing conditions, the only good logical place to put it, and that's the hardship, and it's a reasonable use for the same reasons. It's not contrary to the public interest because it's really the exact same impact as currently used, and same thing for substantial justice, and there's no reason to think it'll impact the values of the surrounding properties.
Very good. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The variance is granted. You're welcome. We didn't get any applause this week.
That was a one-off.
I guess so. I guess we're out of luck there. The next case is 0084-2023, 135 Oak Hill Road, an RO Open Space Residential District. Edward and Amy King are the owners. The owners wish to create a second dwelling unit through the conversion of the second story of the existing garage. The applicant seeks variances to Article 28.24, Table of Principal Uses, to allow a two-family dwelling in an RO district. Article 28.5.2, duplex or two-family dwelling to allow a duplex on a lot with approximately 175 feet of frontage where 300 feet is required. And Article 28.5.2, duplex or two-family dwelling to allow a duplex on a lot of approximately 1.12 acres where 3 acres are required. Anybody here from Mr. and Mrs. King? Swear to tell the truth and nothing but.
I do.
Would you sign in, please, and also identify yourselves for the record?
My name's Edward King.
And I'm Amy King. Good evening. Thank you for hearing our variance. We are brand new to this process, so this has been interesting learning all of this. We currently have purchased this home in August. We had been searching for months for a place that we could make an in-law apartment for Ed's parents who are here with us tonight. They've sold their home in Kittery of 53 years and are ready to move in with us in the next stage of life. We had been searching for months and months and been outbid and had lost places, and we finally found this one. We're excited to be moved in. It has a unfinished space above the garage that is perfect to turn into a living space for them. But apparently it's a little too big, so it's 1,024 square feet, and the in-law apartment, I believe, is 750. So that's why we're here, is to hopefully approve creating a living space for them within the residence. We're not changing the exterior of the house at all, besides adding another entrance for them and a small deck on one side of the house. But otherwise, the outside structure of the house will remain the same.
Could you speak, the question of hardship is always important, and in this case, I think it probably has something to do with the existing configuration of your house, but rather than lead you into that, could you speak to what you believe the hardship is that justifies a variance here?
Yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my brain around what that means.
Me
but,
too. Too. It's been a long, hard struggle, but it generally has to do with either the lot or the board has also considered the configuration of the lot and the buildings on the lot.
So we've learned
to
a little
be
bit about this, but
part of the existing conditions.
right, so I guess the
create the
residential
hardship.
district that we're in typically has lot sizes bigger than ours, so ours is already a unique case, apparently being only 1 acre. And since we already have other places in that district that have accessory dwelling units, we assumed that it would be allowed in this area also. I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to me is part of the hardship. I think, and I'm not sure if this qualifies or is what you're looking for, but for us, one of the hardships is the lack of these types of living facilities within the area in general. Trying to find a place where we could help take care of our parents as they get older is extremely hard, and trying to find something that's accessible for both us and them, with us working full-time and those kind of things, makes it extremely difficult to find a location. So finding one like we did, realizing that it's on a lot that is smaller than what the code states, is what I see as one of the major hardships from this, is that we're asking for that variance for that reason. If the lot had been of adequate size, my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we would not even have to be here, that we would meet all the requirements and we could just move forward with things. So our biggest thing, it seems like, is that the lot size is what's restricting us on being able to do that.
Is that correct?
Yeah, if it was a bigger lot, they'd be able to have a duplex.
Two-family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in an
And
RO,
you
you can have a duplex.
Are you, so you've probably learned or already know that the difference between what you want and an ADU, well, there's several differences. So one of the key ones is on it, if this was approved for an ADU, which you don't qualify for, one of the requirements would be that the main portion be owner occupied. Whereas if this is approved, I know that you intend it to be owner occupied, but that wouldn't be a requirement. So having said that, are you committing for the foreseeable future that it would be owner occupied as to the main unit?
Absolutely,
Oh.
that's the intent of being here, is to be
So-
with them.
And we have 2 kids in college, we're not going anywhere.
But if that, but eventually, you probably
Yeah.
want to mark, who knows when,
Right.
Absolutely.
But if that was put on as, we'll have to find out if we can, but if that was an enforceable restriction, that would obviously somewhat limit your marketability of the house, because it couldn't be sold to an investor who's gonna rent it out.
Oh, understandable. I mean, we're both, I've been at my job, I'm a captain and the EMS director for the Derry Fire Department. I've been there for 22 years. My wife's a math teacher at Bow High School. We're invested in this community. We've moved over just from Bow. We're not like we've moved from away or anything like that. I mean, I think it's literally, I think it was like 12 miles or something like that we moved here. We're very excited about that because we love Concord and the area. So for us to be able to find something like this, our plan is that we're not going anywhere. We want to make this is a, it's a true generational
Yeah, we don't-
household.
We haven't thought about the next part of this, and we don't know how the codes work in terms of that, but right now, we're just looking to have a home that we can share with them.
Other questions from the board?
I have a question for Dr. Hutton.
You bet.
Yeah, I do too.
Okay.
Oh, boy, you're on the hot spot now.
Oh, boy.
I feel like this has probably been asked before, so excuse me, because I'm forgetting, but could they qualify for an ADU if they own, I know that there's about 1,000 of unfinished, but could they only finish 750?
It's hard,
That-
because
I
it's
thought about
gross
that, too.
floor area, which in our ordinance, you measure from the exterior dimensions of the building. So it's hard when you start cutting up the
Already existing.
inside, because we measure from the outside.
Oh, the code says gross, it doesn't say finished. Could you somehow configure it so that, say, 250 goes to the main unit, and then the entrance to the ADU is,
Yeah, I think it would be awkward, given the layout of the current
It would be awkward
structure.
in this case.
It
In
may
this
be
case, it
something
would
that
be
ends up in
awkward.
front of us either way.
But to speak to your earlier question, you have conditioned second dwelling units before to have all of the other requirements of an ADU, other than the space one that they can't meet. So you've put a similar condition on similar variances in the past, so.
And you're comfortable, because
Yep.
my memory is Craig, and this, I respect both of you, there's
Mm-hmm.
difference of opinion, but he was not comfortable that would be enforceable, but you feel comfortable that you could enforce that condition?
If we can enforce it under a special exception, we can enforce it under a variance. I mean,
Yeah.
it's,
My recollection is that where we ran into trouble before wasn't that it had to be owner occupied, it was that it had to be a family member.
Oh, is that what the ADU says?
No, that was what we were saying.
Oh, and that might
Yeah, I
not be,
think-
And that, we
Kosher.
discovered, was
that might not be legal.
we weren't really empowered to do that.
Yeah.
Didn't stop us from trying, but it wasn't legal, so we stopped doing it.
I have a Dr. Hutton question.
Yeah.
Does the statute prevent us from approving an ADU larger than 750 square
yes,
feet?
because you can't variance a special exception criteria.
Yeah, we've
See,
run into
we're
this.
learning too.
Wait,
It's very
That's why we have.
but I think
It
Jim's
sounds very
question is,
complicated.
does the statute say 750 or our code says that?
Our code says it's 750.
It varies from town
City-
to town.
Not hypothetically, the city could adopt a code for ADUs that are 1,200 square feet.
The proposed, the
See, you're learning
Concord
a lot.
Next, which has been in the works for a while.
The
I think goes up
2017
to,
plan.
I think goes to 950 in
Oh.
proposed. So it's going in that direction
Yeah.
for sure, because we,
Still not quite
I
1,024.
think there's a recognition that 750 is pretty small.
That's, yeah.
There's also, the definition of the area could change too in the ordinance. Other towns that I've done ADUs in, it is different.
Yep.
They define habitable space as being,
So we use both words
What
apparently in our special exception criteria. We use habitable space but the measurement of the floor area is gross floor area, and we use
Yeah.
habitable space in a
that's
different way,
been
which is-
consistent for years.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
But it might be a problem in this case, I think.
Yeah.
There'd be, for the applicant, will there be an internal entrance between the two units?
Yeah, so there's already in between the units. Well, right now, you pull in the garage, there's stairs that go up inside the garage to the second floor. And then there will be an entrance on the second floor through to our house as well.
Other questions from the board? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to it? Comments from code enforcement?
None, no further ones, no?
We have a request, well, I'll declare the public testimony portion of the hearing closed. We have a request to permit a second dwelling unit in the, we've heard testimony that it would be, function as an ADU, and that the existing footprint of the building and the existing size of the lot relative to the other lots in the neighborhood provokes the need for a variance in order to use it that way. I'm going to start with Mr. Winters on this. What are your thoughts on it, Andrew?
You know, if they wanted it to function as a duplex, it would be a tougher decision for me. I might still be inclined to approve, but since they're committing to the key ADU requirements, I don't think we need to commit them to all of the ADU requirements, but the key one it being that it'll remain owner occupied as to the main unit. And if we make that a restriction of our vote, then I feel very comfortable that it would be a hardship not to allow them, because there's a good layout for it. It's a reasonable use for a family member to live with you. And I mean, the 2 acres versus 1 acre, I mean, there's still a ton of land there. You know, it's not really going to change the character of the neighborhood. I doubt anyone will really know how many acres were back there unless they, you know, went out with some kind of mapping device.
Very good. Jim?
Yeah, I agree, and I think in particular that, you know, there's a bit of a hardship given that structurally it creates 1,000 whatever square feet. It would be awkward to
Yeah.
pursue the
a few
ADU, chop
off.
up and
Yeah.
for the purpose of it complying with the ADU. So this seems like a reasonable approach to this issue.
Brenda?
Yeah, I agree, and aesthetically, it's not gonna change anything, so it's not gonna affect it's not gonna change anything to the exterior that's gonna make it look any different, so I don't think it's gonna affect the neighbors at all. So, I agree.
Nick?
Yeah, and what's the point of making them knock off 250 square feet, attaching it to the house and calling it a den to meet the 750 square foot requirement? I think it's pointless. Yeah.
I agree with my colleagues. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I'll move to approve all 3 requests.
Is that with, sorry, is that
Yes, with the
Andrew's?
condition that it be maintained as an owner-occupied duplex.
Do you have enough material as far as the
You-
rationale goes?
You guys were very good on that one.
Okay. Any discussion on the motion? Do we have a second? No, we need a
did not
second.
have a second yet.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The variances are granted. We finally got some applause.
You got applause at the last meeting, didn't you?
We got a lot of applause at the last meeting, but
See?
tonight it was kind of dead. Yeah.
What was the applause for? I don't remember.
I don't remember.
It was for the auto, I think the auto.
It was for
Oh,
the,
yeah.
The
The
motorcycle
motorcycle
guy.
mechanic.
Motorcycle mechanic.
you've only been here 3 times.
Yeah, he was going to get a coffee cup with his name on it here. Okay, we have the next case now, which is 0085, 2023, 113 South Main Street, CU Urban Commercial District, South Main Gateway LLC owners. The applicant wishes to establish a fitness center and seeks a variance to Article 28.7.2EC, Table of Off-Street Parking Requirements to permit 21 parking spaces where 34 are required. Gentlemen, swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Would you identify yourselves for the record and sign in, please?
Yes, I'm Ari Pollock for Capital Fitness, and to my right is its owner, Dustin Rose. Capital Fitness now operates at 85 South State Street, but its lease in that space is ending. It may ring a bell for you because we were here some time ago seeking a parking variance for that location, explaining similarly to tonight that, yes, the use is fitness, but it's a small personal training-oriented gym, and in that instance, there were 3 spaces on the property. Different situation here I'll get into, but the variance was granted there, and the operation has been seamless without complaint. No code violations, no visits from the police or others. In this instance, Dustin wishes to move his business to 113 South Main Street, leasing from Ben Kelly, who's the owner of 113 South Main, but also 3 other buildings that surround and are essentially operated as a bit of a campus. This is a case of out with one tenant, in with another, but the music school is there now. This is a change in use to fitness, and so we took a fresh look at parking. The property is an existing developed mixed-use site with frontage on South Main Street. It's within your urban commercial zoning district. And as I mentioned, the applicant wishes to occupy a fitness center of 4,600 square feet. There's other tenants that compete for parking on this property. There are 6 residential apartments and a tattoo parlor of approximately 700 square feet. A literal interpretation and enforcement of the off-street parking table would require 34 parking spaces for these various 3 use types. There are 21 spaces on the property today, and there's a parking plan in your packet, and I also circulated a plan that's annotated with the uses per building. As an existing developed property, the site just doesn't offer room to develop additional off-site parking, off-street parking, I should say. The structures predate zoning, and certainly zoning in its current form. I put some dates together using the city's GIS. The youngest of the buildings dates to 1930. The oldest of the buildings dates to 1880. I didn't go out and independently verify this, but that's what the GIS software indicates. Either way, very old. To accommodate all of the site uses and share the available parking, the applicant, Dustin, and I have spoken with the landowner, and we're asking for a variance that would allocate those 21 spaces, 9 for fitness, 9 for residential, 3 for tattoo. The applicant's fitness business, as I mentioned, is relocating. His experience in the other location has been that even 3 spaces in the other location has been adequate. He does hope to grow his business. Everyone hopes to grow their business, and going from 3 spaces to 9 would feel luxurious to this applicant. To the extent that even the 9 spaces prove to be limiting or restricting, there is obviously significant public parking on street, on South Main Street, on Store Street, Pearly Street, South State Street rather, even Sexton Avenue, which is a somewhat unimproved paper, but nonetheless public right-of-way. I think I mentioned that 85 South State, where he operates now, was parked by variance, and again, no issues relating to that use. The use of the property is reasonable in that the use is permitted in the district, and frankly, a parking variance is necessary to pursue the permitted use. The commercial zoning district in the urban area is an existing high-density urban area. It's no surprise that parking is one of the constraints that applicants would regularly face. The public interest supports the development of permitted commercial uses and desirable services along the Main Street corridor, and this is one of the reasons why there is ample public parking in that general vicinity. And certainly as you move closer to the center of Main Street, there's even fewer and fewer off-street parking opportunities that make the availability of public parking critical to those businesses. And this is similar, but actually it's even less critical because there is some on-site parking availability. The spirit of the ordinance and substantial justice are achieved in that the requested variances would be consistent with ensuring that adequate parking is provided. The fitness category in the table of parking uses is fitness of all kinds, one size fits all. Not all fitness centers are created equal or operated equal, and in this instance, it's more of a smaller boutique, attention-focused service which means fewer people arriving at the same time. The relief achieves substantial justice in that 9 spaces within the existing 21 should be more than adequate. The value of surrounding properties is certainly unlikely to be detrimentally affected and probably not affected at all. There's no evidence to suggest that the immediate properties would suffer any devaluation as a result of a permitted use coming in. Again, it's one tenant out, one tenant in, and there are no material changes proposed to the exterior features of this building. There will be a building permit needed for some interior renovation for equipment for the gym, but nothing exterior, no changes to the appearance or size or footprint of the building. Happy to take your questions. Dustin and I are at your disposal.
Is the tattoo parlor there now?
It is.
And the apartments are
They are.
obviously there now. How much parking did Strings and Things require if it had? I believe it was a retail store. They did lessons as well, but
They did lessons, which makes it a greater parking requirement than just the retail.
Their lesson rooms were on the upstairs, whereas this tenant is only going to be leasing the first floor. So a lesser space.
oh, less amount of space.
Correct.
So
No.
maybe the comparison then is not. What will be upstairs then?
The landlord hasn't determined. I suspect it will be some additional rental space for residential apartments. I don't know.
But if this parking plan is it using all the spaces, or is he reserving some spaces for the potential upstairs use?
I think he may be reserving some spaces in the 6 apartment count, and I don't know that. What I do know is that this request is to allocate 9 of the 21 to the fitness.
So the parking requirement for the music school was 1 per 150 square feet, and a fitness center is 1 per 120 square feet.
Okay. So pretty close,
Yeah.
Pretty
but
close.
it's actually more intense for the fitness center.
But the fitness center will be smaller than the music school was.
Right. Okay.
Is the parking plan, parking plan in the residentials, is it in more than one building, and we're only seeing one building in this?
You're only seeing one building on here, which is, I sent a handout around.
Yeah, okay.
And it has the other uses indicated in the other
Okay, so
buildings.
the additional residences are in the other building, you're not
Correct.
cramming that many upstairs?
That's
Okay.
correct. The count is for the 4 buildings.
Okay.
But
And is that one, excuse me, is that one parcel, those 4 buildings are?
Yeah, I don't know if it's one parcel, but it's commonly owned and
One owner,
commonly parked.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this
There you go.
lot is, the music, or the music store is the only building on this lot?
I believe that's true, but like I said, they're commonly owned by the same LLC.
And are all 9 of the spots on this lot, or it's like there's a sharing arrangement?
It's a sharing arrangement. I think there actually are 9 on this lot. I think the 6 on the side and the 3 in the back are on this lot. But it's generally shared by those 4 structures.
What's the rear of Butter?
I'm sorry?
What's behind it, what abuts to the rear of the?
To the rear is city land, is a real slope back there, and to
You
the,
get down to the rail yard or Store Street?
it goes to the rail line, and Store Street is to the north.
So there's not apt to be opportunities for additional parking there because of the slope?
There's a slope.
Oh, so it's really, it's not really in use, because it's too
It's
steep?
not improved.
Yeah.
Other questions?
I have a question for Dr. Tracy.
Sure.
Does it matter that the businesses are daytime and the apartments are the only ones that are 24 hours?
That's only consideration for a conditional use permit from the planning board.
Okay.
Other questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone who'd like to be heard in opposition to it? Any comments from code enforcement?
No.
With that, we'll close the public testimony portion of the hearing. We have a request for forgiveness of some parking spaces for a fitness center, which will replace at least part of the existing music store, well, I guess the music store section of the building. I have that correct, right?
You do.
Yeah. We heard testimony that there is no room for other parking and that this particular use does not require as much parking as the ordinance does. and also that there is on-street parking available. I'm going to start with Nick. What do you think about this one?
I don't sense that there's really going to be a need for more parking than is requested here. I mean, we do have a mixed use here, which probably supports the fact that they don't really need 34 parking spaces. I'm not convinced that they do. So as far as their request to reduce their fitness requirement from 19 to 9, considering the kind of fitness that they're doing, I think is reasonable in terms of parking requirements.
Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree, and on the whole, I think it will be less impactful than the current use.
Yeah, I agree. I'm kind of surprised that there's this much parking requirement in this area, because in downtown, I don't think you need any parking, right?
No, not right
Those are
downtown.
performance districts, so yeah.
Yeah, so it's a pretty stark change in the district when I mean, it'd be nice if the city kind of zoned it a little more seamlessly, but, you know, instead of just having this sudden parking requirement. But yeah, I think it's totally reasonable use. I don't know what else they would put in that building that, you know, is gonna need less park. It's gonna, you know, won't have the same issue. It seems reasonable.
Brenda?
I agree. He's
I-
going from 3 to 9, so.
I agree with my colleagues. I think the configuration of the lot and the building create the hardship, and that the use is reasonable, and that the impact is likely to be no more than the previous tenants, which seem to be workable for many, many years in that location. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion based on the description you just said.
Is there a second for the motion based on the description I just said?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Do you have enough, Dr.
I
Hutton?
do have enough, thank you.
Is there any discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The variance is granted.
Thank you.
No dummy.
Okay. Next case this evening is case 0087, 2023, 18 Kensington Street, a single-family residential district. Adam Pignatelli and Jessica Forrest are the owners, and they wish to add an extension of the roof and a small deck to support a new entrance, expanding the non-conforming structure, but being no closer to a setback than the existing structure. And they seek a variance to Article 2885B, continuation of non-conforming structures. Swear to tell the truth and nothing but.
Yes,
May we have your name, and would you sign in, please?
sure. Adam Pignatelli, 18 Kensington, owner and resident.
What would you like us to know, Mr. Pignatelli?
There was a lot of words to describe this entrance that we're putting onto the side of our house. But
We
really
like to
what-
frost the cake heavily.
Right, but really it's a small extension of the roof that doesn't extend any further than the existing house toward Kensington Road. And in fact, I'd forgotten when I wrote this that there's a chimney on the side of our house that is actually extending closer to Kensington Road than the side of the house, which is visible on the photos. And I believe the chimney is just about exactly 15 feet, if I remember from when we purchased the property, from the setback. And then there's another 8 or 10 feet or so to the road. Just jumping to the main point of substantial hardship, this area has been a constant source of concern for us. We have a gambrel-style roof, and this is an area where a lot of water comes down, a lot of snow and ice builds up on the roof and then comes down, sometimes in large chunks, sometimes just in small chunks and drips down. And the result has been water in the basement right there. At this area, you can see it coming down a small area of the wall right behind the electrical panel, which has always been a concern of mine as I've thought about it. We've never had any electrical issue that I know of as a result, but that's been one of the major problems, and it's the design of the roof, the way the roof is, but it's also the shape and the topography of the lot. The house itself is downhill by approximately 18 inches or so from the street level. And so essentially the water does not flow away from the house. There's nowhere for it to flow to. It has to flow, down somewhere. There's a small amount of paving that is in front of the windows there. and now there's a door there, that I think just adds more impermeable surface. And so whether the water is going down between like a crack in the paving and the house, or is this kind of groundwater that is just building up in the area? Either way, we've tried to address this as best we can to save ourselves the prospect of doing something major to the house and the chimney and to the basement itself. And there is a French drain in the basement, but we have seen water coming down the side of this, and it's a little unnerving. Now, we're also, part of this project that's undergoing now is to add an entrance right there, right where these windows are. And that's also, a safety issue with snow and ice and rain coming down. So it's nice to have that additional protection. And so that's a good picture of it right there. There's that little sloping roof. And right now, there is no roof there whatsoever. And so to support the entrance, make it a little safer, it's going to try, in theory, prevent rot as well around that door, where we have had some rot on the door on the side, on the north side of the house, around the casing of the door. So that's been a concern as well. And we're pretty confident in working with our architect and our builder that this will solve our water problem in the basement, and it'll effectively protect this entrance pretty well. We're in and out of our house a lot. We have young kids, they're running in the driveway. There's a basketball hoop there, and there's and so they're in and out all the time. It's nice not to have to open up and close the garage every time. And our address is on Kensington Road, and we never had an entrance on Kensington, facing towards Kensington Road. It's really, I think the old address used to be 160 School Street. And so that's where the front entrance has been. So it's nice to have a side entrance. And as I drove around the neighborhood the other day, I took a whole bunch of pictures that I uploaded and through Tracy. I brought some printed copies. You'll see there's a lot of doors of varying types around the neighborhood. And this isn't every single house around, but these are the ones where this is in the immediate vicinity, where there is some kind of roofing structure over an entrance to protect the entrance from water dripping down, snow and ice. Some of these are not in the setback. Some of them would be awfully close to the setback. So I think it's a reasonable use, and it's not going to change the character of the neighborhood at all. All of our neighbors are supportive. I think Alwyn Fine, who lives next door, wrote a supportive letter. Frank and Christine Suarez sent a letter, and Sylvia Larson sent a letter. She's the neighbor. Sylvia is going to be the one who looks out of her house at this entrance, and it's an entrance that kind of matches an entrance on her house, although she doesn't have any roofing structure over her entrance in the same way. But she also has a house that is uphill from the road, so there's some natural flow away. And there's plenty of examples of other doors and houses around the neighborhood too, but these are the ones that kind of caught my eye, all within, I don't know, the Dwinell neighborhood, School Street, Thayer Pond Road, and I think that's the vast majority of these. Some of them might be, one of them's on Park Ridge, and one of them's next to the school administrative office building, so that's on the last page on Center Street. So they're all within about a quarter mile, so we don't see it changing the character of the neighborhood whatsoever. And I certainly don't see it against public interest to make an entrance a little more safe. That's going to be added anyway. And as for the spirit of the ordinance, we're extending a non-conforming use, but the house was built in 1928, long before my understanding of, and although I'm an attorney, I don't do a lot of zoning works, but so long before I think the current zoning code was in place. So we inherited a house that was built within the setback already, without an entrance onto the street, which is our address. As to the value of surrounding properties, I would leave that to some other expert to determine. I don't think it'll affect the value of the surrounding properties. And I don't think it'll affect the value of our property. I think in some ways maybe it may raise the value of the property, making it more accessible. It may lower the value. Someone could argue that too. The room that the entrance is into used to be an office, and we've decided that's better used as a mudroom, given we have some children who are coming in with a lot of mud on them that we've noticed around the house, various places.
Muddy children are considered a hardship by this point.
Well, not these two. These are two great kids. Not a hardship at all. It's, but you know, I did do some research into some of the past zoning, some of the past approvals and denials, and I did see that there was one case from August 2022, and now of course every property is a little bit different, but it was out on Rockingham Street, and there was a rebuilding of a porch within the 25-foot setback. It was approved. It sounded pretty similar to this one. There's no existing porch that we're rebuilding, but we're building a small area over an entrance. I'd say the approximate dimensions are maybe 8 to 9 feet by about 4 feet, 3 to 4 feet approximately. So it'll be 30 to 40 square feet additional into the setback. And we would do some landscaping around it, make it look nice and for our neighbors as well. So I think that's I'll certainly answer any questions you have. And
Questions from the board?
Do you know what is the setback there? Because you don't look too close into it.
well, my understanding is the setback is 25 feet. I thought this was a side of a house, but apparently front of a house is frontage on a road. So my understanding, I'm just looking at here, is 25 feet. And we're definitely within 25 feet.
Are you on a corner?
Yes, it's a
Two
corner.
front yards here.
Yeah, so we have 2 fronts and 2 backs.
So there's your hardship.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your time.
Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in favor of this appeal? Is there anyone who wishes to be heard in opposition to it? Any comments from code enforcement?
Not at this time.
With that, we'll declare the public testimony. Oh, no, I got some letters here before I declare anything closed. I have a letter from Frank Suarez, who indicates that he lives on School Street, doesn't give an address, who is in favor of the appeal. I have a letter from Sylvia Larson, who was mentioned earlier, who lives across the street, and at 23 Kensington, and she is in favor of the appeal. And I have a letter from Allen Fine, who lives at 20 Kensington, who is in favor of the appeal. And that was it for the correspondence, I believe.
Those are the only 3 properties that kind of abut ours. The others would be catty corner or across streets.
With that, we'll declare the public testimony portion of the hearing closed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We heard the appellant would like to add a canopy over the door. We heard testimony that the configuration of the house creates an ice and water hazard in that location, and that the existing building is within the setback due to the fact that it was built before the zoning ordinance was created. I'm going to start this one with Ms. Perkins to my far right. Not necessarily far right in every sense of the word.
Definitely not.
Down the table.
Yeah, I don't see an issue with this. Certainly not going to be a detriment to the neighborhood. In fact, any improvement to the exterior will be improvement to the whole neighborhood in general. And it'll definitely be an improvement to the property to have an exterior door, and even the safety of the property to have an exterior door on that side that's not reliant on the garage door. And they're definitely a hardship having 2 streets required to fit the front yard setback.
Mr. Witters.
Yeah, I think the water issue alone, this is the the way that's been recommended and the logical way to try to address it. That alone is a hardship. We don't really have to get into the the second door, which seems like a good idea. That might also have qualified, but certainly the water is a pretty serious hardship that they can address that, and it's not extending any further than the current house, so I think it's very reasonable.
Yeah, I agree.
Jim?
It's, there are, as I said, 2 front yards, which makes for hardship, and setback is no more effectively than what exists today, so it's not encroaching more than the current footprint of the house does.
Nick?
Ditto.
I ditto your ditto. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second?
Do you feel comfortable, Dr. Hutton, that you have
Yes.
the rationale? Very good. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The variance is granted. You're welcome. That brings us to, I believe, the last agenda item that we have this evening,
Just like his father.
which is 0089 2023 21 Jackson Street, RD, Downtown Residential District. Dale J. Cunningham Revocable Trust and Charles B. Woodhouse Revocable Living Trust,
We're on already.
2014, are the owners. The owner wishes to construct a shed and seeks a variance to Article 28.532 accessory building and facilities to allow construction of a 0-foot setback, on a 0-foot setback right on the lot line where 5 feet is required. Come on up. Swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth.
Yes, sir.
May we have your name and would you sign in on the sheet, please?
Josh Brum, JV Design and Build. I'm representing my customer. We were previously here a few months ago for zoning approval of the deck that we put on, that we made smaller. You can actually see it. The customer did a wonderful rendering of that right there, actually. You can see the deck that we had done, and that is a rendering showing the shed that we'll be building. Now, as you can see from that drawing, the shed is going to be no higher than the windows that we have put in, the opening I should say, for the deck, and we will be finishing it with the same siding that we already had on the house, so it will match the area completely. As far as a hardship is concerned, just due to the lot size, there's very limited access for storage. This shed will be used for bike storage and other items for recreational use. Sadly, the homeowners don't really have any access to their basement to be able to put anything there for bikes, anything large like that. So this is why we came up with this. Honestly, the only one that anyone would be able to see it is at the end of the driveway as you're looking straight in. Besides that, it will be below eye shot for anyone in the area, and as you can see, there's a fence behind it, and it will be below the windows. So.
Why not pull it forward a little bit?
So we wanted to at least have it all the way back to maximize they have 2 cars, and to be able to maximize the space there.
What's the lot size on this? Not very big, is it?
No.
Yeah.
We did gain a little bit of space when the existing deck that we added a roof to, we moved it a little bit in, so we gained some space there, but still, even to do something on the back side, there's no space. You know, your house and it's shoulder width apart to the fence.
It's 0.06 acres.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's
Did
it.
you have a question?
I don't see the write out of the heart. Did you guys?
No, there wasn't any write-up
Oh.
on this.
I'd sent it in.
Yeah, I know you did. I'm looking to me.
You're right, I did notice that.
Do you have?
I was too embarrassed to say because I thought I'd lost my.
I thought I lost it too. I figured I would.
No, you're
No,
right.
it must be stuck in EnerGov.
In what?
Our new online system is called EnerGov, so I may not have downloaded it.
Do you have a way of just putting it up there and then we can just look at it now?
You don't have to, I have a question for the
Previously
applicant.
denied us?
Sure.
I have no memory.
You
Yeah,
don't have to
me
go back to
neither.
the rendering the picture, but it looked like there were some white
I'm
doors.
looking at the
Is
sledge.
that access to the basement?
I was here. and I don't
So
remember.
that was a breezeway that was already existing, and so we just closed that off with some doors. That way they'll have some added storage
Okay,
there.
so if we move the structure forward, it would restrict access to those,
Yep, it would.
that storage space.
Yep. And then it would also make almost, for lack of a better phrase, dead space behind there.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to maximize their amount of space for their flow of their land.
And if I could, you're not up against the fence anyway, right?
No, we
Because
would-
there's still,
Correct, we would be
Yeah.
back against the fence just for snow coming off, rain, shear, anything like that.
right, so there's still a gap of.
Correct.
Yeah, because usually the fence isn't built right on the property line, it's in, so
Yeah,
that,
so we would probably be about 12 inches off that fence.
You know what, Josh, I don't see it. I wonder if we were remembering the last application, because they were together, remember? And
No,
then
I could have sworn I sent it in.
Do you have
it
a
didn't
copy?
get uploaded.
Do you have a copy of it with you?
Not on me, I probably do. Let me check my tablet real quick.
Okay.
while he's doing that, I don't remember us denying a shed before, somebody,
It wasn't on the application, it was on the drawing. It wasn't on the actual application, so it didn't get consolidated.
Oh, you mean last time?
Okay.
So what happened, what was the application for last time?
The
This- the-
breezeway, the back porch.
I missed that, I don't know if can't remember, I just missed the
They
meeting.
put a porch in the back of the building, and so it was into this.
What month was that? I
setback.
got the minutes right
What
here.
did we do?
We
It
approved it.
was
Approved it.
over
we
the summer.
approved it.
So what's the deal with this?
I
this
don't
neighbor's
understand the letter.
Doesn't make sense.
He may have misunderstood
Oh.
Yeah.
what happened.
I see.
We took no action on the shed.
Yeah.
I see.
It wasn't a part
Because
of
it wasn't
anything.
part of the.
So we approved a breezeway, but took no action on the shed.
Right.
Because it wasn't formally
Yeah.
applied.
The
Yeah.
porch,
Right.
whatever it is, yeah,
It wasn't noticed.
yeah. So we took no action on the shed.
Okay. Yeah,
That's
this
why
was,
the shed's back. Okay.
Alongside Master, so it's a permanent structure? Is this a permanent structure?
It would be a permanent, yeah.
How is, it's on like cinder blocks or?
Yeah, we would have it on cinder blocks, and the floor would be 2x4, pressure treated. And then we'd be 2x4 construction KD on the sides. And
No.
then
so
It's not a separate slab, there's no foundation.
there's no, no.
so technically it's permanent in the solid sense, but it could be.
Correct, you could move it if you had to.
You didn't find it, did you?
I have not found it yet, no.
Do you have, can you go from memory and run through the criteria if we prompt you? Because I think we should get that.
Yeah. Go for it.
Start with hardship, which I think you did touch on.
Enthusiasm is overwhelming.
Let's see.
So,
The alternative would be to recess the case
probably don't want that.
until we could see the written
No.
testimony, but if you can
Here's
give
the-
us.
The
it all
hardship
verbally.
was the fact that the lot size and the setbacks and not being able to have access from the outside to the basement. So to be able to have additional storage space in their yard, that was the reason for that.
Okay. And as far as the,
Character in the neighborhood.
yeah, well, actually, it wasn't character of the neighborhood, it was the impact on property values that I was searching for.
If anything, it would probably improve it, just with the fact that there would be a custom-made shed at the top of their driveway that will match their house in both architecture and style. It is something that will add to the landscape and to their structure. I don't see it as a downfall.
Sorry, did you say, is there a garage currently in the property?
There's no garage there.
And as to the character of the neighborhood,
So it's a very beautiful historic area, and the reason that we're going to be building the shed in that same style is kind of to mimic the architecture that the house already has. You know, using the same siding, using the same corner boards, everything like that, just to mimic it and to make it so that if you do see it, it's pleasurable to look at, but with it setting below those windows, it is to the point where it's not very noticeable in the first place.
the wall on the left, is that the neighbor's house?
Yes, sir.
So they're right on the lot line?
Very much so, yes.
Do they have any doors?
There's no doors, and the closest window is forward of where their side door is.
So they wouldn't really be able to,
Unless they come out and look
Stuck their
down,
head
straight
out.
down their driveway. That's the only way you'd be able to see the structure.
Sure looks a lot nicer than a Rubbermaid.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
The record will show that there was no one, oh, hey, there is someone in the audience. Would you like to testify either in favor or in opposition? No, all right. So there's no testimony in
just sign
favor or
in.
opposition. Is there any comment from code
Are you the
enforcement?
homeowner? Oh, okay.
I just wanted to clarify
owner.
a couple of points.
The shed owner.
They're required to have 2 parking spaces. Remember they were talking about?
Yep.
So you can't,
You have to push it back in order to allow for the 2 parking
Yep,
spaces.
and I had another
So that
requirement.
2 is a hardship.
I had another requirement in my head, but it left, so.
But is this, I should have asked him, but is, do you know, is this, multi-units or just one unit?
1 unit.
One.
We do have one letter. This is from Thomas Farrelly, who is the owner of 55 Franklin Street. And he strenuously supports our prior denial, which I'm not sure we did. I know we didn't do a denial of the variance.
No, I checked the minutes, and you didn't.
He's concerned that it's not in the spirit of the ordinance, and this is the shed he's speaking of, and places a burden on the abutter, and does not do substantial justice. Having shed at that location does not redress any hardship either. Further, it would harm the abutter's property value.
His
But he's not the
property,
abutter.
he's,
He's not the abutter.
He is 55 Franklin Street. Where's 55 Franklin in this? That's a condo complex, isn't it?
he might be a landlord because his actual address is in Rye, New Hampshire.
Or- Right.
55 Franklin is this one right here.
Oh.
Do you see me?
Not even-
Oh, okay.
And he's the highlighted, the applicant's the highlighted one, so it's kind of a block and a half over.
Really?
Don't think he's gonna see the shed from there.
Right. Okay.
Usually takes Jackson Street.
With that, declare the public testimony portion of the hearing closed.
Move approval.
Would you like to offer some reasons why? Or
I haven't heard anything to suggest that it's contrary to the public interest. I think it's not going to alter the essential character of the neighborhood. Substantial justice is done in that it allows the applicant to maintain 2 parking spaces that the applicant is required to have. I heard no evidence that it was going to diminish the value of the surrounding properties, and the hardship, literal enforcement of this hardship on a very unique lot that is probably one of the smallest lots in their neighborhood is what persuades me for the hardship argument.
Pretty well said. As I would expect no less. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
You know, if they wanted to do a garage, I would have given it consideration, but that would have been a closer call, but it's pretty, you know, I think we found it's reasonable for a homeowner to have a garage for most single-family homes, so since that doesn't seem feasible given the size of the lot, the shed is reasonable to store things.
Very good. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? The vote is unanimous. The variance is granted. Do I hear a motion to approve
We
the
don't
last
have them
meeting's?
yet. They weren't in your packet. They're coming in.
Oh,
They weren't?
You just
They
have
weren't
to-
in the packet.
We had a draft, and I think they may have been tweaked, so we haven't seen
Yeah.
the tweaked
Oh,
version.
It was emailed to us.
You had emailed them, but we don't.
I
have that.
emailed the draft, but I.
Wow,
usually
that was a
send
narrow
them
escape.
packets.
we almost approved minutes that
I didn't even realize that those
Didn't
were in our
exist.
packet. I thought we just went off of what we had been emailing.
No, they're always in the packet.
I'm-
Yes. You have to look at your packet.
I guess then there's no more business before us.
I had a couple, just, if you could walk me through what's gonna happen in October, I just need to be reminded of the 2 meetings.
So October 4th and October 11th are your 2 meetings. I have your October 4th packets right here. On the 4th, I'll give you your 11th packets. I figure that's the best way to not confuse anybody.
Okay.
When's the break a day hearing, the 4th?
The 4th.
Okay, is that first on the agenda?
It is.
Okay, very good. I hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? I guess we don't have to stay here.
This is our shortest.